a little more. My Bloody Podcast.
Jesse! Open the door! Jesse!
What's up, everyone? Another episode of My Bloody Podcast. I'm Bryan Kluger here in Dallas, Texas, and I'm joined with the co-host with the most, James Cole Clay, the man I want to survive in a cabin in the woods with. Oh my goodness, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, and hopefully our combined movie knowledge will let us survive. We're going to get even more movie knowledge today, so it's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. We're the Jamie Kennedys here, I think. So let's introduce, we got a very special episode here today. We're going to be talking about a movie, a horror slasher movie called Murder in the Woods. And we have two fantastic, legendary intercontinental champions of film, cinema, and horror. Oh my goodness. Yelena De Leon and Luis Iga. How are y'all doing today?
We're great.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So y'all doing well in all of these times right now, these last few months when we've been quarantined, staying in? What, y'all been doing all right?
Luckily, yeah. I know y'all has the same feeling. It's for us creatives, it's been time to create, and we're blessed because we're always, doing so many things and rush and no time for creativity. So it has forced us, not forced us, but we finally have the time to be creative. So yeah, we're blessed that now at the beginning of the pandemic, give us time to reflect, and all of a sudden now with the release of the movie, we have to get really busy. So
there you go. And Yelena, you're doing all right?
I'm doing great now that I've learned how to be an introvert because I'm such an extrovert. I'm a people person. I'm always here and there, everywhere, traveling, doing projects. However, I've had to stay inside, and honestly, it's been the best thing because I've learned to paint. I finished all my scripts that I've been wanting to finish for a long time. I even started writing my books, which will be out next year, so I am good.
Oh, I want to read. I want to see painting. That sounds awesome. But let's jump right in here. But first, we have to start at the very beginning for both of you. We'll start with Yelena. Where did it all begin for you in film? Was it something you watched on TV long ago on a VHS? Where did it all begin for you?
Well, when I was a kid, there was a TV show called Crime Story, which was a primetime show on NBC that came knocking on my door. Literally, when I say Hollywood came knocking on my door, that's what happened. So they knocked on my door and they asked if my mom was home, and I was like, no, she's not home. They're like, oh, you're home alone? I'm like, no. And they're like, oh, okay, well, can we talk to the owner of the house? And I was like, well, she's upstairs. That was my grandmother, who was hard of hearing. And she spoke a little bit of English. She understood it. So they were like, oh, well, we want to shoot here. And I was like, shoot what? Because I'm from the south side of Chicago. So for me, shooting means something totally different. And I was like, I don't know about that. So I went upstairs. I asked my grandmother. I said, there's a guy downstairs that wants to talk to you. And she's like, no, tell him. I said, no. So I come back down and he's like, oh, well, can you tell your grandmother that we have, like $400? And I was like, oh, okay, hold on. So I go back upstairs and my grandma's like, okay, yeah, tell him to come on in. But for an entire week, when I tell you I had Hollywood royalty movie magic in my living room as a kid, that's where it all started, because I had the late Dennis Farina in my living room. Basically what they wanted to do was get a shot. This was obviously before, drones. So they got a shot from my porch of a guy dying basically when he got shot. And I remember being this nosy kid and going up to the director and just saying, hey, is there anything that I can do? And he was like, yeah, when you hear a gunshot, just go to the window and peek out. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm supposed to run and hide when I hear a gunshot. And he's like, don't worry, it's not real. So I was like, okay. So in essence, I ended up being an extra in this. So a week later, it's on. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I didn't understand that. So my whole life, I've been trying to figure out how that was done. And I think I finally have figured it out. All movie magic.
Oh, that's an amazing story. So right after that happened, did you go to your room and okay, I got to write a script. I got to get a home video camera. We got to shoot something.
Yeah. I started writing books as a kid, actually, and I won all the way a Young National Authors Award a long time. And then I started doing theater because that's what you do in Chicago. There wasn't really like a film scene there, but theater was my jam. And so in high school, I was a musical theater major. I actually wrote a 3-act musical when I was a junior that I got to star in. So I've been doing this for a very, very long time. It's what I love. I don't know anything else. I just absolutely love, writing, producing, acting. I'm a creative. I'm an extroverted, introverted creative as of now, but
Oh my
but
goodness.
I love it.
Yeah, a Jacqueline of all trades. Okay, I like that. So, Luis, what about you? Where did it all begin for you in film?
I mean, what I fell in love about film was probably about 5, 7 years old, and it was movie magic, right? I was watching. I mean, like a lot of filmmakers, it's Star Wars. So George Lucas' world, being able to create something, that's not real and being real, and also, but for me as an artist, since I was a little kid, I was an artist. I loved building models. I loved, I would replicate scenes from movies with my GI Joes, and I would shoot them. Grew up in Mexico, so I could buy fireworks in the corner store and make mini explosions and play with the powder. Luckily, I still have my hands. So that's what it was. And for me, it was more the make believe. Like I love all the models that they made for Star Wars and all the everything that was practical effect, not visual effect. All the special effect. That's what hooked me. And then through that journey, I fell in love with directing. So I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. But at that time, I thought I was more into the visual, the special effects side of things. But in Mexico, I grew up in the north. Like we didn't have any type of that schooling or any of that. So I decided to come to the United States to pursue that. And it's been a long journey, but now we're here. So dream come true.
There you go. And when did you realize, when you both realized, because I believe you both went to school for film, when did that spark materialize? And do you remember, were you scared? Were you nervous? Or were you just really confident going into this school? Was like, I'm going to be the next, this big filmmaker. I'm going to do this. Here's my student film. Was that like that for you?
I mean, I've been so driven. I mean, since I've been one of the few lucky ones that knows what I knew what I wanted to do since I was 7 years old. Once I saw this, I fell in love with it, and I was like, this is what I'm doing. So I meet a lot of people that are like, I don't know what I'm doing in life. I try this, I try that, I don't like it, I don't know. But for me, I knew what I wanted, and I always wanted to go to USC because of George Lucas, right? So when I got into USC for the master's program, I'm ready for this. Let's do it. What's next? I mean, I was taking my classes, and then I was crashing other classes that I wasn't part of. Till this day, I live next to USC. So before the pandemic, I would still go and show up in some classes that, in the auditoriums with, when they don't notice you're there. So till before the pandemic, I would show up, and, whenever I saw there was a good critical studies class, I would just, planning with the students and, so I took the most advantage of it that I could out of my time at USC.
Do you remember the first camcorder, video recorder you shot something on?
Oh my God. There were the EX1s, I think. The EX1s.
Those were great, weren't they?
Yeah.
And was that the same for you, Yelyna?
Yeah, well, because I knew when I was 7 that this is what I wanted to do, I pursued it 1,000%. So in high school, I was a musical theater major. Then I also, I went to the other school. We call it the other school because, at USC, there's the other school. I don't know if you know what that is. UCLA, for undergrad. And that's where I learned, I did film, television, digital cinema, as well as Chicano studies and international human rights. I love to learn. So it was one of those things, like, I think I had 3 shows on cable access in Chicago at one point. I mean, everybody in the city knew me because I was always just creating. They used to call me like the Ricky fake, like Ricky Lake, because they're like, oh, you look like Ricky Lake. I'm talking back in the day. I know I look really young, but That's what they used to call me. So I just owned it. I was like, yeah, I am. So what? Because it was something that I just loved doing. So then when Luis and I met at USC, we were like a handful of the Latino students there, because literally there was no people of color there at that time. And so we always had the same goal, which was to make universal films that could star people of color, and what better way to do it than in a horror genre? So that way you don't know who's going first. I got to keep you guessing, because usually it's the first, person of color, the token person that goes. So yeah, it was something that at USC, I got to learn from some amazing professors that have done, we're talking $200 million budgets. Here we are, indie filmmakers, but we really got to experience what it was like to do everything up to spec to Hollywood. And I'm really fortunate that I was able to get in there and learn from the best.
And what was the first meeting like between you and Luis? Because y'all coming from rival schools.
No, but Yelyna, we met at USC. I was already in 1 or 2 semesters ahead, and there was a mixer. I was part of the graduate. I was vice president of the graduate council of the School of Cinematic Arts. So we always did mixers. So the new students met the more advanced students and things like that. So I was producing a short film for a class, and we were looking for, usually the first semesters, they're very open to helping out, and they have the time to help out in production. So, so we were talking, and then I ended up meeting Yel at this event, and I had a story of a friend of mine who she had brought to me about domestic violence that he wanted to tell about somebody that he knew, and I thought it was a very inspirational story. And so we met, and Yelyna had also some she knew some people in the domestic violence world, and and then we decided to collaborate on that movie. And then from that, it was we developed it. She wrote the script. I made all these pitch packages. I pitched so many investors and so many people, and then we couldn't make that one, but the investor was like, I don't have this much money, but I have this much. What do you have? So then I was like, oh, I have an amazing horror film that you're going to love. And he's like, okay, let's do it. And then I call Yelyna. I'm like, hey, we have to write a horror script.
That's awesome.
What we had a cabin that Luis had shot in before, because he did a short film there, right? So we had that. And then I had access to amazing actors that I'd worked with in the past. So that's what we had. And then after that, it was just like, all right, let's get together,
literally, cliche, coffee shop, napkin. This is what we have, and this is what the story is going to be. And Sheriff Lorenzo has to be Danny Trejo.
Yes.
That's what we can, that was it. It's like, the first meeting was that, is like, this is what we have. This is what we can use. This is what the story is going to be about. And Danny Trejo has to be in it.
Danny Trejo plays like the perfect sheriff. Like, he really does.
Yeah. He again, in part of this film, and the way it was written and the way it was directed, was not to have it be a stereotypical, because Danny Trejo is always used the same way, right? You always see him without his shirt off. Everybody casts him so he can take his shirt off, right? Every casting for tattoos. Right. So, that was a goal. It was like, how can we do things different and show another side of Danny that, people may have seen or may not have seen before, because you never know what's going to happen.
Right. So that's how Murder in the Woods came about. And then you start shooting, right?
Oh my God, shooting.
No.
No.
Or how long was it to take? Because you shot this a few years ago, right?
So this happened literally almost 6 years ago. I got the green light from the investor in October, November of 2014.
Yeah.
So Yel and I got together. She wrote the story. Notes back and forward, developing the script. She kept writing. But then we're going to the Christmas holiday, and I was in Mexico prepping. And we didn't know. The investor was like, yes, but not yet. Yes, but not yet. Yes, but not yet. So Yel had some other of her friends that she's worked in other movies, actors like Gabriel Chavarria, and who else did we lose? Gabriel and who? And your son, and Jewel.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to shoot in January, but then, we're waiting for the investor, and then we had to push to February. and then we lost Gabriel, and Jewel had to go back to school. So so then we had to open for auditions. So while I was, doing some things, Yelena took care of the auditions, and then I would just show up and like read with it. And Chelsea Rendon, who's Yelena has worked with her for a long time. I also worked with her at USC in some projects. She helped us. She became an associate producer, and I mean, it happened fast from November to February. It was just fast. What happened?
It was like 2 weeks of pre-production, in all honesty, right? It was like, all right, ready to go. We're like, okay, here we go.
The story of our life, man.
Made it
2 weeks.
happen.
You got 2 weeks.
That's
Everything in this movie is like you got 2 weeks.
What I was gonna say is that you're talking about how this project came to be, and to me, watching it, it all seemed natural in that way. In that you can feel that creativity, like breathing, that excitement, and that to me, something palpable about that with filmmaking. Even though I airplayed it to my TV in my living room, you can still feel that coming through if the project is right, if the filmmaker's voices are heard. And I was able to feel a voice from each one of the characters, the archetypes that we know, the people that we know, but just twisted in a way that was really like, had this rhythm to it. That feeling that naturalism, as somebody who watches a lot of horror stuff, you just kind of have an intuition with it. As somebody who likes movies, I don't create films, but I consume and watch and think and studied films, and I just appreciate that feeling. It's a nice feeling, unexpectedly, and that's kind of why I love it so much, and that's why I love being creative. And so I know I haven't chimed in, but I've just been listening to that, and that's just what I was thinking about. Is you can feel like you're talking about like writing down things on, like you still have to visualize things in that point, and to get to that. And just keep that same feeling of just like writing something down on a napkin, like an idea that you may have, a spark that you may have, and to get it to this. If people can't see me other than y'all, but I'm making like a looks like a TV kind of thing. I don't know. It's just really cool. Kick ass, talk to people who are excited about it. And I don't know. I just love it when that can come off. So figured I would say that.
No, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, thank you for noticing, especially, that's the importance of having diverse voices, right? And behind the camera and in front of the camera, because, I mean, Yelena and I, have had an uphill battle even when we were at USC with some of our faculty, right? Because we come from that world, right? I grew up in Mexico. She's Mexican. She also, she was born in Mexico, but grew up in Chicago. So she knows the Mexican-American community. I know the Mexican community. Then I lived over here. So we lived and breathed it, right? So when when I'm directing and she's writing these scenes and these stories and the altar, it's organic. It's not a Google search, right? So that's why these characters feel organic and real and different, is because we come from a different background. So we're going to tell our story from our background. Right, Yel?
Yeah, I mean, it was really about like tapping into characters that I know, because I've met some really. It's so hard to talk about this movie without giving spoilers. We'll just stay to the archetype. So the mean girl, right, or that ex-boyfriend that it's like, oh, how thinking about him. How could I, write a scene with him in mind? Just things like that. I'm trying to be very general because I don't want to give away spoilers. I don't like spoilers. But it's one of those things that our love for this genre, because Luisa and I, when we started talking about different genres that we can make at this budget, the one thing that popped out, we're like, oh my God, our love for horror film, especially slashers. I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, even like Halloween. I mean, all of those movies, the classics, we grew up watching them. But we wanted to make a movie, like a throwback slasher, that we would have loved to have seen when we were growing up, right? Because you never saw people of color on the big screen. So that was like a really big part for us. And I wanted to make sure that we could do a universal story with cultural references. So if you get it, you get it. And if you don't get it, hey, you know what? You're learning about it, because this is how it is. This is who we are. So I love that freedom of actually being able to write something where, Luis and I, we got it. I didn't have to explain anything to him and be like, oh, it's a cultural thing. Like, no, he got it. He's like, oh yeah. He would tell me his stories and I'd be like, exactly. So it's one of those things where it is organic because it's coming from a place of like what we know. and our love for it. So thank you for appreciating that, because it's been a long journey. And honestly, like, just hearing that feedback and watching this movie on the big screen with an audience is making everything worth it. All those sleepless nights, I'm like, okay, great, awesome. Because it's a fun movie. You know, it's one of those movies it's like you can watch over and over again. And I do love the whodunits. I'm a big Agatha Christie fan. So it's one of those movies where you go back and you watch it again, and it's like an onion that you're peeling. You're like, wait, oh, wow. You know, you just learn, you just like see all these things that are there, they're planted there, but sometimes you don't get it right away. So it's one of those movies that you can watch over and over again. I know I've watched it 3,000 times and I still get scared. I literally still scream. It's one of those things that I know what's going to happen, but it's a fun film, and it really, you know, it's one of those movies that you can enjoy with some popcorn, you know.
I have a story about that, about Yale. We were here in my place, and you know, I'm editing because Ryan, we have an editor, Ryan, but then again, we're low budget, so I had to, you know, we had no more money, so I took it over and I finished editing the movie. So we're long nights, long days editing here, and I have a setup where I'm editing here, and then the TV over there can show the image. So we're like, okay, we're gonna change this, blah blah blah. So we change it, and then we're watching it, and I guess she forgot that we had talked about that change. And all of a sudden, she screams. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I'm like, I was like, so it was funny, right? Because even somebody that has been so close to the project, right? And like, just like got scared. It was so funny.
And it's an ugly scream. It's not one of those like, ah! No, it was like, ah, you thought, you know, bloody murder right here. Like, what is going on? He's like, did you see a mouse? I'm like, no, I'm freaking scared of the movie.
That was pretty amazing, right? To have somebody that's so close to the project still getting scared.
Well, that's how you guys' scripts and your film direction, it's still effective. And I must say that it actually is a timeless movie. Like, you know, most slashers like Friday the 13th, like you referenced before, it's timeless. I mean, you take away a modem or, you know, a cell phone, this takes place anytime, anywhere. And that's, I think, makes it all more visceral and scary. And I like that fact, and the fact that you brought in the cultural references, because I love when you see something from an African-American horror movie or this Mexican-American movie or a Jewish horror movie that we've seen before. And I love learning about all of that in there. And I'm so glad you guys put that in there. And I guess, you know, that's one of the goals, is to show your vision in that. I think you did it perfectly. So
thank you.
And so let's talk about the fun, gooey bits, the gore, practical effects on a low-budget film. I mean, I'm sitting here in Michigan at the Evil Dead house, which is practical effects, gore, and blood. I know y'all probably had a good time there doing that, right? Who got drenched? Who got blood-soaked? Was it fun?
I love, so growing up, so for undergrad, I did fine art school, and I always been an artist. So I love working with my hands. And I've always bought them makeup kits growing up. We would go to Texas because I lived in Mexico. We have family in San Antonio, so we'd spend some time in San Antonio. So I would buy the kits with the prosthetics to like put cuts and bullets. And I would love doing my own makeup. And again, I would shoot myself with the camera. The thing that I would love is tricking people with those. I would ask, you know, we're the gas station. I would ask my parents, can I get $1 for, like, you know, to buy gum? And I would buy those chewable blood pills. Right, and all of a sudden, like, I'm bleeding in the car, and I'm like, "Ooh, what's going on?" Right. So, I've always loved practical effects. I mean, that's the fun part about horror. I mean, and you know, to be honest, when I was at USC, we were focusing more in. It's one of those things that you grew up watching and you love, but you never thought you were gonna do it in a way. It's kind of like when, you know, so all of a sudden, I'm at USC and I have to produce a zombie film for a friend. And from one of my classmates and friends. So, you know, so I go and have to buy all this. So I found this awesome store that this guy from Mexico is doing all these prosthetics and blood for all these big movies. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I did that. I produced that movie, and it was so much fun. And the blood, gallons and gallons of blood. And he makes his own blood. It's clean blood. So you can wash it off. So it was just, you know, and then we ended up using a lot of the props from that short in Murder in the Woods. So for me, it was just it's so much fun, right? And it's kind of crazy how a horror movie, is scaring people, but when you shoot it, you're laughing off. You're
Right.
laughing because the blood went this way instead of the other way, and it came too soon. But then you only have two shots, right? Because in the film, so you only have two shirts, right? You only have to shoot them when they're bloody. Like that's it. You're so.
There's just so many
I mean,
things I wouldn't even think about that would happen. Like you just said 2 shirts. Like I'm like, okay, yeah, duh. We have to get this the next time.
or like the location had it wasn't a floor, it had a carpet, right? So once you get the blood in the carpet,
oh,
so
speaking of blood, I'm glad it was fun for you, Luis, but being the person that had to transport these gallons and gallons of blood at one point, because we did use my car in the movie, it was like a bloody crime scene. Everywhere I went, I had blood on my hands. I had to carry these gallons, and it was just everywhere in my car. And it was like, that was a nightmare, because I'm like, oh my God, if I get pulled over or something happens, like they're going to ask me, what is this? And I have to explain, it's fake blood, it's fake, So I had a lot of moments like that. I will say though, there was one moment, I mean, he's the practical effects guy, but I remember this night where he got Jello, and I was like, we're eating Jello? Is that what we're doing? And he's like, no, it's for the practical effects. And I'm like, what? So he started saying, here, tear these little napkins. Remember you made me do these tissues? I did like 3,000 rolls of toilet paper, and I'm like, what is this? So I learned how to make this amazing, I don't even know what scene you put it in. You can tell them.
it's like, you just make it like, it makes the organs and things like that look real.
Oh, it was amazing though. I was like, cool. Oh my God, toilet paper? I would never thought that. And Jello. I thought, here you are, like, I'm ready to eat the Jello. And he's like, no, that's where the freaking blood. It's a prop. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's great. That I'm glad that you're doing those old practical effects. I love hearing stories like you use Caro syrup and red food coloring and Don Dairy food creamer, make that base. I mean, it's fun to hear the like the toilet paper and the Jello, just like you're using what you got, and it looks really good on film. So
that's movie magic. And again, that's why I fell in love with this. Was the magic? It's like, how can you create something that's not real?
Right. So can you talk to me, both of you, about your first premiere of this movie? Once after it was made, you probably had a screening party for cast and crew. What was your expectation? And then after watching all the hard work come through, what was that like for you?
Well, I mean, we premiered the movie. The first time this movie was shown to a wide audience, and the first time actually the actors saw it too, was at the Festival Internacional de Cine de Guadalajara here in LA, the Chinese theater. So that, for me, that was,
that's awesome.
It was nerve-wracking, right? Because you've never seen it with an audience, right? So why they hate it? Right? Like, you don't know. So it was just so, so I tell you, to be honest, I was super nervous. I was, like most artists, we're very insecure of our work. And, so once, you start hearing the laughs on the jokes, you start hear the jumps at the scares, you start like relaxing.
You could take those shots of whiskey and tequila. Like, oh
yeah.
I'm pretty sure there was some shots going around. I remember 2 things. So I remember the laughter, and afterwards, Luis going, "Oh wow, it is funny," and I'm like, "Yes, I'm all about the comedy, guy. It's a slasher. Hello," but he wasn't sure, and I was like, "Just let it. You got to trust it. It's gonna land." And so when we watch it with an audience, and just everybody was getting it, they were laughing. I was like, "Okay, great. It's that beat, like what you were talking about earlier, like." It has that rhythm, and it was flowing, and it was great. The other thing was the cheers. So anytime Danny Trejo gets up on that big screen, it's literally like if he just walked in the door. It was one of those things where it was just like, yeah, and that to me was amazing, because here are all these wonderful, up and coming actors. Brown is beautiful. They're up in these lead roles, and people that are in the audience are seeing themselves in these characters. And it was just a really, really awesome, rewarding, and magical moment for everybody there. And just watching, the actors, they hadn't seen the movie, and here we are in this big theater. Actually it was at the Chinese theater. So imagine that. It was literally for us like a historical moment.
Yeah,
so it was awesome.
And that's something. Actually, going back to Yel's thing about not thinking that maybe it's not funny, is because that's a big lesson for us. So because again, we're all filmmakers who are low budget. We would test the movie, the cuts with our friends, right? and most of them are filmmakers and very critical. So a lot of the jokes were not landing with them because they're not looking at the movie as an audience. They're looking at the movie as a critic.
Yeah.
You're analyzing every little thing. So when you're doing that, you're not going to get the jokes because you're not letting it be. So for me, that was a lesson, is like, whenever you're testing stuff, don't test it with film students.
Well, yeah, that's a good lesson. I loved it. I laughed. I was scared. I enjoyed it. And I must say, with your script, Yelyna, the characters you wrote, if they're stereotypical, it's for a reason. Because I've been camping and I've met these people and have witnessed all the things in there of going off, having sex, smoking, all of it. And I'm like, what did she do? Was she there the whole time when I was camping? What's happening?
Well, the thing is, what I was saying earlier too, is with all the actors, I feel like each one of the actors was able to take those archetypes and put their own personality into it in some way, or maybe like some observations that they had about maybe somebody they know, and just getting into the character. And that, as a viewer, mixed with like the rhythm, and you were talking too, you can kind of feel it whenever the editing is just like hitting and the beats are hitting, and then that mixed with like the dialogue, it's just so crazy to, like, especially talking to y'all, having to do from Trello and toilet paper to having to find a rhythm to your own dialogue and finding your own voice while writing, to thinking of rhythm of that with low budget filmmaking and with trying to do so much while still trying to manage actors' personalities and make sure all the performance, I don't know, it's kind of mind-blowing to me that it all works in some way. But I really wanted to say about were they working out those characters? What was like the direction that you were talking to them about, and being able to find those really specific things that are somehow still really universal with all those? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. I mean, on the directing side, for me, one thing that I learned from Barnett Kellman, he's a veteran TV director. He was my professor at USC, was, the discovering of things with the cast members. So I love film because it's a collaborative effort, right? So even though I have some ideas how the scene is going to work, once you get it on the floor and you start rehearsing, a lot of times, whatever you picture in your head is not working. So it's about discovering with them and give them the liberty to bring, their character into it. And a lot of this, most of the actors were, especially when we shot, were not as experienced as they're now. Some of them were first-time feature, actors. And so it was fun working with them and figuring out the right beats and for example, like also, so the first scene that we shoot is a party scene. It's my first feature film scene, and is the scene with all the cast members, like a big scene. You don't do that the first one, but because of the schedule, we had to do it that way. So then we're ready to roll, and all of a sudden, it's written on the script that, the guy takes a hit of the bong and everything, right? And so I'm talking to Kate, and Kate is like, I've never done this. I'm like, what? Right? Yeah. I'm like, so I'm there like teaching, how to do a bong hit.
Oh, please tell me you have this on film and it's going to be a bonus feature.
I have to look at the BTS footage. One thing I do have is all the auditions that I want to release later during the DVD, Blu-ray extras, but things like that, and then so the actors were great because the roles that they're playing, they are the opposites in real life, right? So Catherine is playing this like total sassy, stuck up girl. She's like the most genuine sweet girl. So Jordan too. Jordan, he's like so introverted and so nice, and he's acting like this, macho tough guy. So it was a lot of fun. So it was about discovering those moments and working with the actors to bring everything together. I know Yelyna had also some experiences teaching people some things.
Oh my God. So speaking of Catherine, who's a sweetheart, and I absolutely love her. So we had this big dance scene, right? Well, guess what? She doesn't know how to do that dance. Well, guess what? We don't have a choreographer because it's an independent film. So guess who has to teach her how to get down? Well, that would be me, and it would be all right if I wasn't in this freaking. If you would have seen me that day, it was like I was like a snowman. You could not even recognize me because I was wearing this big old jacket. It was freezing. It was like 19 degrees late at night. So here I am in the middle of the night teaching her how to do this like freaking dance, and it was the funniest thing because if you saw me, I literally look like a snowman, but it's supposed to be this like really, you know, hot and sexy dance.
And,
I don't know if we have that footage, but it was hilarious.
and she nailed it.
We have it. Oh no, I don't want to release it.
Yeah, we have. I know we have on the, and actually I think we also have the bong hit in because we kept rolling, I think, a couple of those times, and it's in the Alexa footage.
Oh,
Oh my
I
God.
really
We
hope.
lost?
Oh, did we lose? We might have lost James Coldplay. I know he had something to do,
Okay.
but I don't know if he's lost connection or if he's going to do with it. But we're still here.
Perfect.
But no, I'm so glad that y'all got to do that. I mean, that's the spirit of indie filmmaking. You know, that's what it is, and it's wonderful. And so I got a 2-part question for you. So for Luis, is there going to be a bonus feature of a version of Murder in the Woods with Billy the Sock? And for Yelyna, are you currently writing the stage musical for Murder in the Woods? So, Luis, you first.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. I mean, Billy the Sock, I mean, he's crazy. He's a little crazy sock man, and he's so frustrated because of the quarantine. And, you know, and now, I don't know if you saw the whole, I mean, I'm not going to spoil it. You guys have to see the episodes, but, you know, he's in trouble now. I don't know if you made it to the 7th webisode, but maybe that would be the next season also.
Yeah. No, he's back.
Sorry, I dropped out.
But yeah, so okay, good. Billy the Sock. I'm excited that we might see Murder in the Woods, Murder in the Apartment with him.
With him.
And so, Yelena, you talked about musical theater, and you know, Evil Dead has a great musical production of Evil Dead 2: An Army of Darkness, Murder in the Woods with Danny
Murder in
Trejo.
Texas. We could do Murder in Texas, the musical. I
Awesome.
love it.
I love this. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so
No,
fun.
Texas has a big place in my heart. I do want to shoot in Texas pretty soon, so I just want to say what's up to all my people up in Texas, because I do love Texas. This movie actually was a love letter to my grandmother, because when I was a kid, we used to take the Greyhound bus from Chicago to Mexico, and we would spend 20 hours in Texas, crossing Texas, because it's so freaking big.
It is.
And so late at night, that's when she would tell me all these stories. They were horror stories. Here I am, a little kid, but you know, I was bored, and she's like, "All right, let me tell you these stories." But she would always tell them to me like in first person. So I feel like I have to go to Texas and make a horror film there. So yeah, we could do horror, Murder in Texas. The musical.
West Texas. My car broke down in the middle of nowhere in like Pecos. It was scary. So yeah, West Texas is no man's land. It's amazing for
What's
horror.
cool is Murder in the Woods is shown drive-in in West Texas.
Yes, we played at
cool.
one yes.
Where else? Dallas, I think. We had a couple.
Yeah, there's another one in Dallas. I'm looking at the website right now, and I just think that'd be so cool. There's a drive-in here in Houston I haven't had the chance to go to, but when I was watching it, I was like, this would be so perfect for that setting, like sitting on the top of your car or something like that, and just
in the middle of nowhere. That'd be awesome.
That would be amazing. Like imagine like all the stars and then just Danny Trejo, just like
we played
really
Odessa.
Cool.
In Odessa,
Okay,
Texas.
cool.
Oh, Odessa. Oh, yeah.
That's in Fort Worth, no? I think.
But the drive-in was in West the drive-in in West Texas was in Odessa.
Perfect.
So it was and right now the theaters were opening up because some of the big movies were gonna come out, but then they realized that the amount of money they can make is not what they need to recoup. So some of the theaters are shutting back down. So we're hoping that I really want to push for another drive-in. Even though we're coming out this weekend on VOD, I still think that it's a fun experience to go to the drive-in to watch this film.
Totally.
So now with Halloween and again, a lot of these movies, big movies, again being pushed, to December next year. We're doing another push to the drive-ins. They had already played us, so maybe they take us back for a week or something. So yeah, so if you want to see Murder in the Woods in the drive-in, just call your local drive-in and say we want to watch Murder in the Woods.
Perfect. We will do that.
What's cool about it though is you can get a lot of word of mouth as time goes on. You're not totally beholden to that August 14th, big drop, that everybody was looking at with Warner Brothers and Tenet and all that. It's just cool to me that you just never know. Like, you never know, like, how it can blow up and when. And, yeah, I mean, Halloween season has already started, okay? You guys have, like, 6 weeks of this left. So there's a lot of chances, I think. It's going to be cool.
Good. I got a couple more super fun questions for you guys. So we'll start with Yelyna. What is your most thrilling moment, both as a filmmaker and as a fan? Thrilling film moment, like thrilling movie moment, both working in film and as a fan. Like, whether it be like the sign you saw this certain premiere of a movie you loved long ago, or in addition to that, working in the business.
Thrilling moment. Oh my God, that is such an awesome question. I've been working in the industry for a while, so I have to go back in my brain and, oh my God, thrilling. Because it's the most recent one, I will have to say premiering this movie, because that has taken up 6 years of my life. So thrilling, yes, thrilling is knowing that there was a blank screen and then now there's a movie that is out in the world right now. So thrilling, yes, because it's been a really long roller coaster ride. But yeah, just actually having the cast that we have, especially Danny Trejo. I mean, I grew up watching him and a bunch of stuff. So to actually have him in the film, that is a really thrilling thing for me. And actually the way that I met him as well. So yeah, having met him and then having him in the film and seeing the movie in front of a live audience, I have to say is the most thrilling thing up to this point that has happened. Cool.
All right. Luis, what about you? Most thrilling as a filmmaker and fan?
As a filmmaker, yeah, watching, seeing the premiere sold in 24 hours and then seeing the reaction of the audience to the movie and how well it was received. So that was, I think when we started, exhibiting this movie, that was it. But most recently, I would say when I saw, like, it actually brought tears to my to my eyes. When I saw the poster of Murder in the Woods on a movie website, right? On a theater website, as a poster, as coming soon. So for me, that was like literally like, all these years of dreams finally come true, right? You see your poster. That I designed the poster too. So the poster that you designed of the movie you made, up in all these websites announcing that they're gonna be, in theaters, which is what we make these, movies to be shown on the big screen. Right. I love the big screen. Before the pandemic, I would go at least once a week. I had the weekly, the monthly pass, and I would at least go once to watch a movie in the big screen. It's just an experience. And as a fan, I would say a friend of mine that I've had a crush in this actress. The first time I saw her in a movie, and my friend invites me to his premiere, and I'm so busy at USC that I don't even know what he told me what movie it is, whatever, and then I show up there and she's there.
Can you tell who it is? Can you say who it is?
Alexandra Daddario.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm there and I have the opportunity to talk to her, but I'm completely frozen. And I never spoke to her.
Oh no.
Yep. That was me as an audience.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great. That's very cool. All right, another fun question for you. We'll start with you, Luis, this time. Are there any certain scenes in movies that constantly stick with you? Like, you wake up, you think about this scene, or you're making a movie, you're making a project, you think about this scene that have stuck with you for so long. Certain scenes from movies.
I have to say a lot from The Godfather. Believe it or not, a movie that really, you know, stuck in my head because it was kind of like my struggle. You know, should I pursue family, or should I, put family on hold so I can pursue my dream? Was A Family Man, directed by Brett Ratner. So believe it or not, and that's not usually the type of movie he directs. So for me, that movie, the relationship, you know, in the movie, and what the movie's about, it just resonated with me a lot. You know, it's like, do you give everything up for your dream, or for success, or or you stick to your relationships. So that I would say that's the movie, and I love a lot of scenes in that movie.
Good movie, good scene for sure. Yelena, what about you?
Oh, I have two answers because I can't pick one. There's so many. I've watched so many movies. I love movies. So I will say for character development, one of the movies or one of the scenes that I love is the ending of Misery, because Kathy Bates is just a freaking amazing freaking actress and character, and just that movie alone is just like, I'm like, okay, if I can't write complex characters like that, I don't want to write, literally. So that's one of the scenes that I absolutely love. And then there is another movie, it's an Italian film called Cinema Paraiso, with a little boy that every time I watch that movie, and there's like this big montage scene where I'm like, okay, if I can't do storytelling at this level, I don't want to be a filmmaker, literally. So those are the two scenes in movies that really keep me, like, they remind me, I'm always thinking about that. I'm like, okay, it's either this, it's all or nothing, because I feel like those are just really, two amazing moments in cinema.
Awesome. I love it. And that kind of rounds out our interview. Just have to say that the score to the film Murder in the Woods is also quite excellent. Cole and I were actually talking about that. Yeah, the score is.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
So we love that. And so the movie comes out on VOD, September 18th on all platforms?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah. So if you go to murderinwoodsmovie.com, we're going to have all the, I'm updating the website, because I'm also doing the website.
Nice.
And the marketing.
Website looks good.
So yeah, so at midnight, I'm going to update the website that is going to have all the links to all the providers.
Cool.
We're going to be all platforms, all the in-demand cable boxes from Comcast, Spectrum, Cox to, Vudu, Fandango Now, Google Play, YouTube, all those.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to have you on the show again soon. And whenever you're in Texas, look us up. Let's make movies and eat good food.
Yes.